Welcome back to Living Grounded. You're here with Lila and Tim.
Hi.
We're walking through the highlights of the Bible together. Still in the Old Testament, still a bit of the Bible to cover,
Yeah.
but it's good. Today, we're in a bit of a smaller book, a little bit less known, but still important and great. We're going to look at Esther today.
Yeah, less known, but some people just love it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do love it.
And context here. For those who are history-minded, you might know.
History teacher.
Yeah. Women in the ancient world are at best ignored, at worst vilified, in the sense that most women that have any sort of prominence in ancient literature, it's usually for bad reasons.
Yeah.
The Bible, though, is a fascinating document in that actually most of the time it's women who are the heroes in the Old Testament. Women often do better things than the men, and Esther is one of those books that I think is just fascinating in that regard and totally countercultural. Esther takes place in the time of Xerxes, so he's the king of Persia and Media. And this is historically important. Many today don't consider the Bible to be a historical document, but King Xerxes is really well documented outside of the biblical sources. This is the same Xerxes who's famous for the Battle of Thermopylae. So the 300 Spartans plus their allies.
Sure, yeah.
Yep. The remains of Xerxes' palace can still be found in Iran today. Though I wouldn't suggest you visit right now.
Nah.
But if you did, you would find sections of the palace exactly as they're explained in Esther.
Cool.
You've got the audience hall, the court of the gardens. That's in chapter 1, verse 5. You've got the outer courtyard in chapter 6, verse 4. The inner courtyard, chapter 5, verse 1. The throne room, 5, verse 1. So anyway, it just goes to show that this is probably written by someone who was actually there, who has actually been in the throne room. And it claims to have been written by exactly that person. Xerxes is called the Great in history because he ruled over a massive empire. From India to Kush, which is the north of Africa, to kind of similar to modern day India. The book begins with this drama in the royal court. King Xerxes is married to someone called Queen Vashti. On the seventh day of the great banquet, Xerxes commands his queen to be brought to him so he can show off her beauty. She refuses to come. King Xerxes is furious. He consults with his wise men to see what he should do about this. And they say, issue a decree that Vashti is never again to enter the presence of King Xerxes.
Whoa.
So he does. When he comes down, he realizes that this is no good. He's now got no queen. So he does what any Persian king would do. He says, let a search be made for all the beautiful young virgins in my realm for me to marry one of them.
Another wife.
Yep, it's a Persian reality contest.
First beauty pageant.
Yeah, king wants a wife. Why is this trash in the Bible? But we begin to find out. We're told in chapter 2, verse 5, that there is a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin living in the Persian Empire. His name is Mordecai. It seems like his family decided to stay in Babylon after the end of the exile. So you remember King Cyrus. He is Xerxes' grandfather. He gave permission for the Jews to return to Jerusalem. He said, we'll rebuild the temple and so on. That's from Nehemiah and Ezra, if you remember from previous episode. Mordecai has been raising his niece after her mother and father died. And we're told that she is chosen by the king's servants. We aren't really told why or anything like that, but that's the implication, that she must be extremely beautiful, and there you go. So she is one of the women presented to Xerxes. It's a crazy process, it seems. She spends a year kind of getting made up, I guess, in Xerxes' harem, and then eventually she's presented to him. And what do you know? This young Jewish woman is chosen to be the new queen of Persia. And what a great choice. It almost immediately pays off. Mordecai, he finds out about a plot to assassinate King Xerxes. He's able to tell his niece, who's now Queen Esther, and the plot is foiled. So Queen Esther becomes the hero. We're introduced to, and as Queen Esther is the hero, straight immediately afterwards, we are also introduced to our villain.
Mm-hmm.
An official by the name of Haman, or Haman. I'll say Haman. He is a highly honored servant of Xerxes. Xerxes issues this command that everyone who sees Haman must bow down to him, kneel or pay honor to him.
Huh.
Turns out, though, that Mordecai, Esther's uncle, refuses to do this.
Mm-hmm.
He won't bow down because I think the sense is that as a Jew, it feels wrong to him to honor anyone but God in that way. Now, as you can imagine, Haman, when he sees Mordecai not bow down to him, he doesn't like this at all. So when an opportunity comes, Haman mentions to Xerxes that there's these Jews that refuse to obey the king's laws. He actually offers 10,000 talents of silver, it'd be millions of bucks today, to the royal treasury if Xerxes will command the destruction of the Jews in his realm. Massive stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you've got to remember, the king at this point doesn't know that his lovely new wife is a Jew. She's actually kept that hidden from him. And so he orders on the 13th day of the 12th month, so in a day in the future, that people of every nationality may murder their Jewish neighbors and plunder all their goods. So just take that, if that seems unbelievable to you, like unbelievably harsh or evil, do a bit of research into some of these ancient kingdoms. I think you'll find that this sort of cruelty, this sort of callousness isn't atypical, it's typical. Yeah.
Sounds familiar to the last century too, a bit.
Well, yeah. I didn't want to raise it, but yeah. We need to remember this. Where does our cultural value of life come from?
Mm-hmm.
It comes from Christianity. It comes from the Bible. So Mordecai, all the Jews remaining in Persia have this ticking time bomb, this sword of Damocles hanging over them. We're told that this results in a great mourning amongst the Jews. So they're fasting, they're wailing, as you can imagine, they are in deep distress.
Yeah.
They're all about to be wiped out in a number of weeks, if not. Now, as you can also imagine, Mordecai goes, "Oh, we need to do something about this." He contacts Esther. Do something about this, he pleads to Esther. But Esther is in a bind as well. You see, Persia is not like we imagine, like England, for instance. We imagine like a king and a queen ruling together on thrones and that sort of thing. That's not how it works. In Persia, Esther may only see Xerxes when he commands her into his presence. She actually goes on to say, if anyone approaches the king without being summoned, the law is death. What can she do? She can't just walk into Xerxes' presence and say, "Hey, by the way, about this Jew." But Mordecai reminds her, "Well, but you will be killed too here. Eventually, it'll be found out. It'll be figured out that you are a Jew." And he says to her, "What if? Who knows? What if maybe the position you're in, this royal position, is actually for exactly this moment? It's for this purpose that you've been made queen." Now that begs a question. It never actually gets said, but by who? Like by whose purpose have you been put here? We'll come back to that. Esther, though, she goes, okay. She tells Mordecai, gather all the Jews and fast for 3 days. We'll all fast. And on the third day, Esther takes a risk. So after they've fasted, she puts on her royal robes and she goes to the entrance of the king's royal hall, essentially saying, "I would like to see you, king." She could be killed here.
Yeah.
What will the king do? He doesn't order her death. He asks her to approach. What is it, Queen Esther, the king says. What is your request? You've obviously taken a great risk to come to me. What for? I'll give you anything, actually, even up to half the kingdom. Yeah. Now, Esther plays this very slyly, I think. She doesn't just come out with it, oh, you've made this command, can you just save my people, please, and so on. No, she says, could you, king, and also Haman, could you come to a banquet? Come and I want to feed you.
They wouldn't say no to that.
No, the king says, sure, that's easy. That's easy to say yes to. At the banquet. So he comes to the banquet, so does Haman. Haman thinks, this is great, I'm the only one being invited by the queen, and, this is amazing. King asks again, what's your petition? And I'll grant it. Esther says again, come tomorrow for another banquet. This would be the third day. You and Haman. Haman, he's on cloud nine. He thinks I'm being invited to all these banquets with just the king and the queen. But then he's also got this moment where after the banquet, he goes and sees Mordecai again. He walks past Mordecai, and again, Mordecai does not bow down to him. And Haman, he's not happy about this. He whinges to his wife and his friends about it. And, this is Persia, right? They suggest, what you should do? You should set up a 50-foot pole and ask the king to have Mordecai impaled on it.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And we're told this suggestion delighted Haman. Okay, this is Persian culture. Meanwhile, though, King Xerxes, it seems, is having trouble sleeping. As you do when you have trouble sleeping, he wants to read his history books.
Sure.
As you all should. He reads this record of his rule of his time, a chronicle. And he reads about that time where the assassination plot was foiled. And he asks a question of me. He goes, was the man who warned me about this, Mordecai, was he ever rewarded for warning me? So the king summons Haman, and Xerxes asks him, he says, what should be done? He asks him this cryptic question. He says, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Now, Haman, he thinks beauty. He's talking about me. Make him a prince. Give him a robe and a horse. Give him a parade. Xerxes says, what a great idea.
Let's do it.
Go and do that for Mordecai. And what fun irony, hey?
Wow.
Things are about to get worse for Haman.
Poor guy.
It's the time of the second banquet, and King Xerxes, again, is feeling very generous. He says to his queen, ask me for anything. And this is where she lays it on him. My people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. Now, remember, Xerxes doesn't know that she's a Jew yet. He's outraged. Your people are what? They're going to be destroyed? How could that happen to my queen? Who would do such a thing? Now,
well,
yeah. Esther politically doesn't say, well, you. She points the finger at Haman, who instigated the whole thing. And it all begins to unravel. Xerxes, his outrage remains, and he goes, how dare he? Haman ends up impaled on the pole that was meant for Mordecai. All of his possessions are given to Esther. And the Jewish command is not only revoked, but Xerxes commands that the Jews of the empire may kill anyone who was armed to destroy them, including their women and children, and plunder their property. Now, you might be surprised at this, but again, the brutality of the Persian Empire. And so what happens is the Jews do take some revenge. On the appointed day, we're told the Jews struck down all their enemies, killing and destroying them. 500 men, we're told. So now some would interpret that to say it's just not mentioning the women and children, but it's also possible that it was only 500 men. We're also told they didn't lay their hands on any of the plunder. So the sense is that what has happened here is justice. These are all people who were ready to destroy, annihilate all the Jews. We might even call this an improportional response, that they have only gone and killed 500 as a form of justice. But the book ends, we're told that it was Mordecai who recorded these things, so that's who's writing these things, and he has some final words and praise for King Xerxes because he stood up for the welfare of the Jews. Before we get to Jesus, I'll just mention one last piece. One of the things people find startling about the book of Esther is that God is never mentioned.
That's fascinating.
Not in any form. How can that be? It seems really remarkable. It seems strange. You've got a book of the Bible that doesn't mention God. Some people even see it as concerning. Should this book even be in the Bible? However, I think if you have eyes to see, you will see that even though God is never named, he is mentioned. He is very much at work. Esther is a book about God's providence. So providence is God's work through ordinary life, weaving kind of the world towards his purposes. Why does Esther get chosen to be queen? We're told it's for such a time as this, but the sense is it's God has put her there to be able to rescue his people at the appropriate time. This is what God does. He's always at work behind the scenes, protecting his faithful people, bringing justice on evil. So God is there. He's not mentioned, but he's everywhere.
And what about Jesus then? How does Esther point us to Jesus?
Well, again, this is the remarkable woman piece. It's Esther who points to Jesus. Here is a woman who is celebrated for her courage. She, under the risk of death, goes and stands before the king with a request to rescue her people from judgment. This is exactly what Jesus will do for us. Jesus stands before the Father, requests the salvation of his people. Only, of course, the difference here is, unlike the Jews of Xerxes' kingdom, we do not deserve Jesus' salvation. We're more like Haman than we are Mordecai or Esther. Jesus doesn't stand before the Father to save innocent people. He stands before the Father to save people who deserved his punishment and justice. And instead, God's justice is poured out on Jesus. Queen Esther, we can only imagine, lives a long and fruitful life. Jesus is actually killed for our pardon. But we're also reminded that under Jesus will come back as judge, that all those who side with Haman against God's people, who remain enemies of God, they will suffer they may not be impaled on a pole, but they will suffer the judgment of God.
Oh. So what does Esther mean for us living grounded today? We're not in Persian culture anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Just like in the book of Esther, God is invisible. In your everyday life, you don't see God. When he's doing things, he doesn't leave red dye around the place so that you kind of know. He doesn't leave pixie dust.
No.
We need to see, though, that God is always at work. Even if we can't see it with our visible eyes, we perceive it by faith, that every day God is doing things. He's doing things to protect, to preserve, to care for, to strengthen, to encourage, to grow his people. There is only one reason why Christianity has grown from one man and a few disciples to what it is today. It's because of God being at work. It's his providence. This is why when anything that happens in my life, good or bad, I try and ask, what's God doing here? Why has he put me here? What good does he want me to do? How is he growing me or protecting me or strengthening me? My encouragement is that whatever season you're in, those are the questions you should ask. Because you can be confident of this. God is always doing something. And it is for your good or for the good of his people. Yeah.
Amen. Good questions to think about. Where are we going next? What comes after Esther?
We're going to head. So that's kind of, we're into the wisdom literature of the Bible. And we're going to probably spend 1 or 2 weeks in the book of Job. Another, again, very fascinating book. One where God is mentioned lots, but people have, to be honest, it's the deepest question in the book of Job that people wrestle with. Why evil? Yeah.
Well, keen for you next episode to wrestle with that and dig into that. We'll see you there.
Ciao.